Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome back to the Sigmalations Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Watkins. On today's episode, we will be talking about war, the intersection of geography and violence. On my left, we have the expert on violence, Professor Fernando Fonseca.
That's me.
And on my right, we have the expert on geography, Professor Joshua Roberts.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to start with geography and then follow up with violence. Mr. Roberts, the stage is yours.
Geography, plainly, can very well form many aspects of a story. An easy example of geography molding a story's plot is William Golding's Lord of the Flies. The entire plot cannot exist without the isolated island on which the boys were stranded. Geography lends itself to separation, which fully facilitates the end of the book. That being said, geography, and lack of parent figures, causes violence to emerge. To quote the chapter, literary geography is typically about humans inhabiting spaces, and at the same time, the spaces that inhabit humans. Professor Fonseca, does the same hold true for violence?
Please. Just Fernando's fine. Now, Lord of the Flies, its claim to fame is, the violence. But violence is merely a tool used in literature. Violence can be used to develop characters, as in Lord of the Flies, or it can be used as a bit of a plot device. To quote How to Read Literature Like a Professor by Thomas Foster, the man himself, in a mystery novel, usually there has to be some kind of murder. Somebody has to die first. Once that person has been killed off, I quote, now the rest of the novel will be devoted to solving this murder. Let's take The Hunger Games as a notable example. Everybody knows The Hunger Games. In The Hunger Games, violence is used for both these things, whether it be how characters have to react when violence is the only available option available to them. Or it's simply used to kill off a character in order to move the plot along to the next act.
Interesting points you both bring up. I'd like to ask you both a couple of questions pertaining to your aspects of literature. Mr. Fonseca, what is a common form violence takes in American literature?
Murder.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that murder is the most common and symbolic form of violence, and it is one of the most natural and innate forms of violence in humans. Interesting take on that note. Let's talk about geography. Mr. Roberts, you mentioned earlier geography inhabiting humans. What kind of stupid nonsense is that?
Okay, I promise it means something. The example that I always go to for something like this is Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. The hyper-industrialist background serves as more than just a backdrop for the characters, but as a reason for why they do what they do. The geography forms them as much as it forms the situations. Oh, crap, what was her name? Dagny, yeah. And her defensive actions towards the Mexican trains in the revolution would never have happened in any other place, since those actions wouldn't seem moral in any other situation.
You know, it's kind of similar to what violence does, where I guess you could say it not only forms people, but also situations. I mean, countless times you can see that violence can change the plot in just an instant, a single act. And this can be seen in many examples of literature.
What examples of literature are you referring to?
That's a very good question.
Well, that's our show for this week. Looks like we'll have to skip the war part. Today's episode was sponsored by the Offshore Literacy Fund. Tune in next week for what impact color can have on a story. I have been your host. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace out. Okay, what? Okay, well,